So here we have the Art Forgery case all set up and ready to play, ready to start. I'm currently playing the defense. The prosecution is on the other side. And the first step of Lawyer Up, the first phase of the game, is always discovery. So you've got a big deck of all the evidence in the case, and you're going to shuffle this up, and then that's a really bad shuffle. And then you're going to set it in the middle between players, and players are going to take turns drawing 3 cards and drafting evidence for the case. So I'll probably edit this together, but I'll walk you through my choices and sort of cut out the defense. But in general, what I tell people when they're first learning to play, the Art Forgery case, obviously having the paintings, there are big numbered paintings cards that are just paintings with big numbers. If you control more of those, it's certainly good for your case. But in general, I tell people to take obviously cards that match their color or neutral. Obviously, the higher the number, the better, but you want to always look at effects as well. And you also want to give your opponent your color and sort of take their color away and bury that. So right here, I've got some love letters. That ignores the victory effect. So I can sort of play that against the player to neutralize if I think they're going to win. This is gain the judge's favor and refresh one of your objections. So that effect I really like. So I'll add that to my deck. I'll give this to my opponent. And I will bury the love letters. Sort of, we can start a buried evidence deck there for now. So the discovery phase, we'll go through this entire deck back and forth, and then we'll shuffle all the evidence cards together with our base deck, and that'll be our decks going into the trial phase. So if you want to skip ahead to that, I'll put a link here in the YouTube video to get to the core game. But otherwise, if you want to see me walk through the rest of the drafting of this, again, the drafting is about half of the murder case. There's only 30 cards in the middle. So we're only adding 10 cards to each other's. We're only adding 10 cards total to each deck. So I'm gonna do this off camera really quick. So you guys watching don't know what the opposing side is drafting, and then we'd go on to the next phase. So you can alternate who draws first. It really doesn't matter. You just want to do this part as quickly as possible. So here is a piece of that evidence. This is sort of what the art case is obviously about. You want to prove and have the actual paintings to prove that they're forgeries or not. So we definitely want that. And then with these two left, I'm going to bury this because it would benefit my opponent and give them this blue card because that influence isn't going to do much. So it's very unlikely they'll get that victory effect. Our opponent will draft off camera. And then we'll continue on. This is the discovery phase. When we're playtesting the game, it's actually one of the hardest parts to sort of teach players because, the first time you play, you don't know the evidence, you're learning it. I'm reading these effects. So the manuscript is if I have 5 or more cards in my examination, I can sway a bias. So if I played this as a 6th card, which is pretty hard to do, the bureaucratic reports are just draw a card. I'll probably give that to my opponent. It's worth 0. It helps me. So I like this one better because this one is if your opponent has 5 or more cards in their examination, sway one bias. So it's sort of like if they're beating me up really bad, I can at least sway a juror. So I'm going to take that and bury this. I'll take that. Anyway, what I was saying is that this is one of the hardest parts when playtesting the game to teach people because they don't know the evidence, they're learning the cards, and after they play the game and learn how to play, they're always like, oh, I would have gone back and done that completely different if I had known better. So I'm going to take this, Authentic Masterpieces, because it draws a painting from either examination, so it'll let me get a painting card, which is great. I don't want my opponent to have this, which lets them draw a painting, so I'm going to give them the Industrial Oven, which does help them, but it's the best choice I have currently. That was easy over here too. But as you play this game, this is one of those things that as you know the case and learn all the cards, you sort of know what you're going after. I don't know if I got a Rembrandt evidence, and I can look at my deck. I don't remember which painting I got. I should have been paying attention a little bit more. I'm going to give myself... I'm definitely going to give my opponent this blue one, because it doesn't help them that much. And then between these two, I'm going to go with the examination effect. So they're going to do this. Okay, so that is the discovery phase. Again, as you play the game and learn the cases, this is one of those things you'll change certainly. You can take the buried evidence and set it off to the side of the game. There are a few occasions where you can retrieve and look through that deck to get things. So if any of us buried any paintings or any valuable evidence out of the game that would help either side, there are opportunities to get that evidence out of there. The Art Forgery case doesn't have a lot of the videos out there that we set out for reviews will cover the murder case, and the murder case has strategies where you're focusing on certain symbols and bias symbols. The Art Forgery case doesn't have any of that. The Art Forgery case is just about getting the majority of these jurors on your side after 6 witnesses. So it's about winning these witnesses and using your influence to sway jurors. Obviously, we start out tied. And if it ends in a tie, the defense wins. So, we want to make sure that it's at least tied at the end over here on the defense side. But again, you could see from those cards that it's all about the paintings. The paintings are very powerful, generate a lot of influence, and a lot of the cards and their effects play off those paintings. Letting you discard them from the examination, claiming they're fakes, or potentially retrieving them from each other's piles to play them again. But again, this case was designed, you can see we only drafted 10 evidence each. So it was designed to be a shorter case. It should play in well under an hour, even with learning. And it's a way for players to get comfortable with all the procedures and arguments that you basically are always playing with in a game of Lawyer Up. Because those core decks and basic procedures of the game are always the same. So you want to make sure, here, you know what we'll do? We'll set this up like this so we can keep track of it and you can see both of them. I'll put this one down here a little bit. So we're all set up. We're ready to begin the trial phase of the Art Forgery case. So the prosecution always goes first. They will pick a witness to call, obviously. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to call Yuri Volklov. And Yuri is a Russian art dealer and suspected member of organized crime. He was quick to make a deal with the court when he was caught with several forgeries. So when you call a witness, you always turn the influence in the upper left to your side, and you'll take the first action. But the first thing it says here is search the buried evidence for one painting and add it to your hand. So if any of those powerful painting cards happen to be out of the deck, they will get added to the hand of our opponent. And I do not see any. Oh, I found one. Here's one. So this powerful painting will go to our opponent's hand. And then obviously to start, everyone draws 5 cards. So our opponent will have 6. And I'll draw 5 for myself and show them to you. I should note that if you don't draw a procedure, which are these sort of wild cards and powerful cards, you can mulligan. But I drew one, so I can't. But if I didn't have one of these, which lets you install them, I could mulligan. That's not the case. what I think I'm going to do for this playthrough is I'm actually going to play the defense side open-handed, so we can always see what we're dealing with. And then I'll hold the opposing player off camera and just play their cards in as needed. So the person who calls the witness goes first. The prosecution has 3 influence to our 0. And now we'll be playing cards. And you can only play cards that match, that have at least one of these symbols on them. So our opponent's going to look through their cards, figure out what their best option is. We know they drew that painting, but I don't think it matches with anything they have currently. So what they're going to do is they're actually going to start with this bureaucratic reports, which lets each player draw a card. And he, and obviously has every symbol, so they can easily chain off of it. It is worth 0 influence though, so it goes to our turn as the defense. And what we are going to do is this matches, so I don't see why we wouldn't play this painting to gain 5 influence. Proving that the defendant up here, Henry, does deal in real paintings and not forgeries like were found on Yuri's person over here. And Yuri is going to play a painting that he drew, or I guess I should say, Yuri's not the player, the prosecution is, but... And that'll bring the prosecution up to 8 influence, so they're still beating us 8-5. And this is the way the game goes. You go back and forth, chaining together cards, making up your argument. And you can see the paintings are very hard to chain off of, so we're actually going to play bureaucratic reports too. Each player is going to draw a card. And it will pass back. We're still down. And our opponent... It's hard to chain off of those paintings because they're so strong, but they do have a card that matches. They're actually going to play a procedure card, and you could play a procedure card down to use it later, or you can use it as a wild. So you can see that it matches with that logic symbol. And they're actually going to play that to chain later. So now it comes back to us. And we can chain to our other painting that we have, which is St. Paul in prison. And that's going to bring us up to 10. So, we're proving Henry's innocence here, that all these paintings he works on are actual real paintings, not forgeries. Our opponent is going to counter right back with another painting. So it looks like we both have quite a few paintings in our hands, and we've been drawing cards. So this first witness is a big one. So it's our turn, and I think what we will do is, I would like to use counter argument for the effect, which is, if the top card of my opponent's examination is an argument, I get to discard it. I'd like to use that effect. So a good way to delay is to take a procedure card and install it in your play area. That's your turn. On a future turn, if I have the judge's favor, I can use it. But for now, I can just sort of set it down here and see what else my opponent has. My opponent does have a card that happens to match. They have 1 symbol, so we're going to play for the greater good. And that's going to bring them up to 16. So we're down by 6. You can see we're running out of cards. We do have a few options. You can see that this idea worked correctly, so now I can use my counter argument. It's going to discard this for the greater good, which is an argument, into their discard pile, which is going to bring them down to 13 again. And our counter argument was worth 2, so you can see that this is a close one. We're really battling over this witness. It goes back to our opponent, and they are scared of losing this. They're up by 1, and they have some cards, but unfortunately none of their cards match. They're going to call a sidebar. The sidebar flips the judge to your side. The judge is already on their side, but it also lets them draw a card. So they're hoping to get a card that matches off of this painting, so maybe they can play a little bit more. I think what we are going to do is play evidential argument, which is worth 2 points for each evidence bias that we have in our examination, including itself. So it's worth 4. So this would give us 16. And our opponent is going to let that happen. He could object to it, which means he would discard that card and play again, but he doesn't want to waste an objection. So he's going to let that happen. And the reason he's going to let that happen is because he drew another wild that he's going to use. He drew a procedure, and he's going to use it for a wild. So it goes back to us. You can see that we can't play this card. It's our opponent's card anyway. So we can either call our sidebar or pass at this point, because we don't really have very many options. And there are very few witnesses in this case, and I have used a lot of my paintings. I didn't save them for a different witness. So I'm inclined to call a sidebar, which will flip the judge to my side. It's going to let us draw another card here that hopefully helps us out. That does help us. We do have a Rembrandt painting that we can then, next round, we'll be able to retrieve from our discard. So that did help us, but it doesn't help us right now. But our action was that, and it'll return to our opponent. And our opponent had, look at this. We have 5 of the evidence in the entire case in this first witness. He's going to play another piece of evidence and painting. And that's going to bring him up to 18. We are only down by 2. And we cannot object to that. It's evidence. It's not an argument. So what I think I would do, because I really want to try to win this witness, is let's trigger our procedure as our action. So if the judge is agreeable to you, search the buried evidence for a card and add it to your hand. Then switch the judge to be agreeable to your opponent and discard this card. So let's see over here if we can find any cards that can help us. We only need something that matches. We need more than 2 victory points, though, because if it's a tie, whoever the judge's side is on, that's who wins. So well, I like this one because it gives us a good effect. Let's do this one, the inferior copies card. And the reason I like this card is for a couple reasons. 1, it gives us just enough influence to win. 2, if it will be the last card we play in this thing, because I'm going to want to save this for the Rembrandt. So if we're defeated, we're going to draw 1 painting from either examination pool at the end of this witness. So I'll be able to take one of these 3 paintings that our opponent used against us. So I'm going to play this. You can see it just matches that symbol. It's going to give me 19. And play goes back to our opponent. And our opponent cannot match any cards, so they must pass. So they pass, we pass. Now we're going to go through and resolve the effects on the top cards. So you can see there's no effect here. This is a defeat effect, we won. So we also have a victory effect, which is sway, 1, corruption. So we'll sway this juror to our side. You can see the differential between our influence is only 1. So while we did win this witness, and we'll claim this witness in our claimed witness victory pile, we only have 1 influence to spend. So what we'll do is we will get this person over here 1 space, Now all of our cards go to our discard pile that are in our examinations. The person who lost the witness, which is the prosecution, will refresh their sidebar, and the judge will go onto their side. And then obviously our influence on both tiles is back to 0 for the next round. Now, each player, we have the choice of discarding any cards and drawing back up to 5. We're going to discard this incident report because it's a prosecution card. And we will get 5 new cards. And then our opponent's going to make their decision. They're just going to draw 3. They're going to keep the cards they have. And since the judge is still in their favor, they're going to get to call the next witness as well. And the prosecution is going to call Vivienne. Vivienne used to manage several of the defendant's art galleries and run auctions for him. She always knew something fishy was going on behind the scenes. So the prosecution calls them. They get us 2. They give us 0. When they are called, both players draw one evidence from the other player's discard pile. So we're going to draw this Rembrandt from their painting from them, and they're going to take one of those paintings we played. They're going to take our Rembrandt from our discard. Not that they knew that we have that card, but it matches the symbol that they need. So they're going to start the line of questioning, and they're going to start with point of law, which is going to take them up to 5. And point of law is draw one procedure from their discard, and they're going to draw that new evidence card that they use as a wild. Now we could object to that, but I don't think that is important on the first card out of the gate. I think we should start with our Rembrandt. We certainly want to use it this round, so we can use Rembrandt report in a future round. So that will give us 5. It comes out of the gate. We tie our opponent in influence. Our opponent is coming right back with that Rembrandt they got from us. So you can see that the art forgery case is obviously about playing those paintings and using them in these fight over influence. So I don't know. What do we have here? Play 1 Bray evidence from your discard into your examination. Do we have a Bray in our discard? We don't. We have a Vermeer. So unfortunately, this doesn't do anything for us right now. The Rembrandt report we want to save. This is our opponent's card, and we can't play impassioned plea. So it is not looking good for us. I think our best bet is to play surprise witness down here. We could potentially get a chance to use it. But by winning that first witness, you can see that we don't have the ability to sidebar this round and get an extra card to help us. So because we're ahead in the game, there's a little bit of a rubber banding mechanic that helps. Our opponent is coming in with a legal argument that is worth 6 points, because it's 2 points for each one of these justice symbols. You can see there's 3 in our examination. So that would take them up to 16, which would be quite a lot of influence. So I believe we have to use one of our objections. So when you object, you can only object once per witness. That's really important to remember. And you only have 3 for the entire game. So I've used one up on this witness. He may be baiting me, but the important thing is that 6 influence is immediately discarded, and our opponent goes again. And our opponent's sitting here going, they have a few options. They don't want to play that yet. they're going to play this as a wild. Now, you can object to a procedure being triggered, but you cannot object to a procedure being used as a wild card. So when I use this action to call a surprise witness, the prosecution could object to that, but they can't object to using a wild card to chain things together. So he sees that we've maybe backed ourselves into a corner here, and he is seeing what we're going to do next by playing that, and I think we have to pass. We can't play impassioned plea, and we can't sacrifice. We can't play the Bray report, even though we don't have a Bray. But these two cards could potentially get us a big swing and a future witness. So we have to pass, which lets our opponent. Now normally we'd be able to object still, but it lets our opponent continue playing cards, and they are deciding to try to gang up on us here. And they're going to play this dock surveillance for 3 influence, but more importantly, your opponent discards 1 painting from their examination. So we've passed now, which means we can't come back, and we are now at 0 influence. So our opponent has set themselves up quite nicely. Now, if that had happened earlier, it would have been nice because we could come back in. We could have played this to get our painting back. But because of the timing of it, there's nothing we can do to stop that. We could object to if we hadn't spent our objection, we could object to future cards. But our opponent is just going to gang up on us now, and they're going to add another 6 influence. They're going to play Redacted Impact Report. It gains the judge's favor and refreshes an objection, but we already have both of those. And we're going to play No Further Questions, which lets the defense draw a card, but that card's not going to help us because we've already passed. And they can't play any more cards after that. But it does add 6 more influence, which is going to take them up to 19, I believe. Right? 6, 9, 10 there. So 19 to 0. We just got our butts handed to us. They'll claim this witness. The victory effect is sway a mind, so they'll take this mind here and sway this over the prosecution. There's no victory effects on this top card, so they will put these in their discard. And finally, they will spend this 19 influence to sway the jury. So they're going to take this 6 and 6 for 12. And they're going to try to shore up these expensive people. So they're going to take 5 here. So that's 17. And they're going to take this one here for 2. So you can see the prosecution now definitely has the majority of jurors. But we do get our sidebar back. And the judge does come to our favor. So going into this next round, we'll get to call a witness. And we can discard any cards we'd like. We're certainly going to get rid of criminal associates because it's not our color. And then as far as symbols matching, this impassioned plea, I'm just checking that Rembrandt we have. And we also have a Vermeer. That Rembrandt is a mind. And the impassioned plea is a heart. And that heart, I don't see matching a lot of our cards, so I'm actually going to discard that. And that's going to let me draw 2 cards at the end of my turn. And our opponent spent all their cards, they're going to draw 5 as well. Now, one of the things I should mention about drawing all these cards is if your deck ever runs out, which is possible, usually happens in the final witness, you don't get to reshuffle your cards. There's some cards in your deck and some procedures that let you shuffle cards and do things like that, but you don't get to do it. There's not an automatic shuffle. So you really want to be managing, if you're using the sidebar constantly to draw cards, or if you're always discarding all your cards to draw up cards, it's very likely you could run out of your deck, which means you're sort of going aggressive, trying to win every witness by getting card advantage, but you're going to lose that advantage near the end of the game because everyone's deck is the same size. So we definitely want to call a defense witness because luckily there's only one prosecution witness left. You know what? Let's actually call this prosecution witness. which gives them 4-0. But when we call, we get to sway any bias we want. And we want to take one of these expensive 6s and try to get him back towards us. And looking at what we can do to chain. And we're going to start with point of law, which will give us 3. And it lets us draw a procedure from our discard. And we're going to bring back that new evidence, the only procedure we have, gives us here. Now our opponent goes. Now, we are down an objection. They obviously have won a lot of swaying, but by installing these cards, we do have some powerful things sort of left in our chamber to use later. And that doesn't help them. They're going to start by playing down bribery and installing that for future use. And we have set up going to the Rembrandt report. I'm just going to let us play this here. That's going to give us 9. They're going to play Industrial Oven, which is just for 2. It has a victory effect. And so 6 to 9, they're trying to maybe take away some of that influence we've gained. Now we are in a ending here, so we're actually going to play bribery down here and install it. Now our opponent is going to, that bribery scared him, so they're actually going to sidebar, which is going to draw a card and flip the judge back. So they took away our ability to use that bribery. Maybe they thought we were gonna load up on them. But we were just sort of saving that for later. We're going to do new evidence here and see what else our opponent has. Our opponent only has does not have a lot of cards they can match. So they are going to trigger bribery. We're going to let that happen. So bribery is if the judge is agreeable to you, add the top 2 cards. Now we use the term add here because you don't get the effects, so you can just add them in randomly. You ignore their bias, it doesn't matter. But you do add up that influence. So by letting them do that, may have been a mistake. Maybe we should have objected. They got 7 more influence to their pool, and they've gone up to 11. But that does switch the judge back to be agreeable to us. So we are now down by 2 influence. Oh, do I have this right? That's 13. I didn't go up enough. We are down by 4. So what we are going to do is we are going to use bribery. And our opponent is going to object to that. They're going to say, you can't bribe the judge, I just bribed the judge. Which means we have to go again, which means we're going to use surprise witness. And surprise witness is a great procedure to show because they can't object, they've already objected to this witness. The judge is going to switch their side, but we randomly draw the surprise witness. We claim this witness, and we get to put this witness in whichever way helps us more. So it's obviously this way, it gives us 2 to their 0. And this witness, painting evidence is worth +1 value during this witness. So not only do we get 2 from that, bringing us up to 11, but we have the Minerva Inner Study painting, which is worth an additional 1 point, which is going to bring us up to 12. And we've taken 4 points away from our opponent. So they're going back down to 9. So our surprise witness has taken the prosecution off guard. They are now losing once again. But they do have some new symbols to play off here. So those new symbols may be exactly what they were looking for to set up an additional play. And they are looking, they could play that, but it would not, that would not be good. They're going to play evidential argument. Oh, they can't play that. Look, I wanted them to play an evidential argument because it would have been a lot of points, but they can't play that. So the only thing they can play, which they will do, is charming demeanor, which would switch the judge to be agreeable to them. It gives them two more points, and they are allowed to take another action, and they can take another action, and they can match here, address the jury, which gives them another 2. So they take the lead, and it's back to us. Now we are getting really low on cards here. We do have our sidebar, but what I think we'll do is we'll just play this for 3 points. It's +3 value if the, well, you know what's better? Let's play the Bray Report for 1. It brings us to a tie. They do have the tiebreaker, but this card is going to be worth more if the previous card in our examination was evidence. So we'll make the Bray Report a key piece of evidence. Unfortunately, we don't get play 1 Brave evidence from your discard because we do not have any Bray paintings. But this puts our opponent in a really interesting decision because they have this negative effect where if they lose, we get to sway a bias as a defeat condition. And they only have 2 cards left. So, and they've used their objection. So they're going to pass because they think they've got this witness in the bag. They think that this tie with the judge on their side is going to go to them. But what they didn't anticipate is us having key evidence. And because our previous card was evidence, this card is worth 6, which is going to give us 19. They've passed. We are out of cards, so now we would pass, and we're going to win this witness. And hopefully, when we win this witness, we get to sway a evidence. They are the low skepticism witnesses that are easy to sway, so not great there. This effect lets us return 1 evidence in our examination back to our hand. So we're going to take this Rembrandt painting, put that back in our hand, and then we get to sway a bias from this defeat condition, and we're going to sway this 6 down here. And then finally, we have 6 influence to spend. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to start getting people back on our side. So we're going to go 2, 4, 5, 6. So that is the end of this witness. And it's a back and forth battle between the defense and the prosecution. We will see who wins. But I will set this back to here. The prosecution did lose, so the judge is on the correct side. They're going to get their sidebar back. These are going to go over here, and what makes me think we are in good shape, let me draw our cards, is we saved our witnesses for the end. So they're going to have to call witnesses, which are going to give us an influence advantage here in the last few rounds. You know, we're at the halfway point of the game. They're going to discard that card, which was ours, to draw their cards. And okay. And looking at their cards and their symbols, they're thinking about who to call, and they are going to call Jamshmi Madani. He is an art broker with frequent dealings with the defendant, and he swears that all buyers know the true nature of the copied paintings and happily paid. So we only have 1 influence, so there's 0. Draw 1 card at random from your opponent's hand, and then we get to give. Then we get to choose which card we're going to give them from our hand. So Our opponent's going to steal one of our cards. We hope it's not that precious painting, but it is not. It is this inadmissible procedure. And after looking at their hand, they're going to give us moral argument. They see that, you know, the thumb symbol is not even on this person, so the likelihood of us chaining that together is very slim. And you can see in general that our hand is actually quite bad right now as a defense. So with him called, the prosecution is going to start with a painting for 5. Again, we can't object to those powerful paintings. They are evidence. We can only object to the other types of cards in the game. We can't even play this. I don't even see a way we can get there now that they've taken our wild. So, with things the way they currently are, I think we should play this, which gives us some symbols. It gives us 2, but I like its effect, which is we get this objection back, and we gain the judge's favor. And that is very nice. So what is our opponent going to do now that we've got maybe an edge on them, maybe not? They're going to play evidential argument for 4. Now, do we want to use an objection? 4 on those is not great. It's less than they usually are, but did he need this symbol? Could we object and potentially disrupt? And we did get that objection just back. So, you know what? I think we're going to object. So our opponent discards that. They get to go again. Their influence goes back down to 5. And yes, it looks like we disrupted their plan. And they're going to play, this is a wild. That card they took from us, they're going to use it and play it as a wild. So, we are now in a situation where, well, we can play great or good. So let's play what we can play. That'll give us 3, that takes us up to 6. So we're actually winning this witness now, which would be very good for us. We've already won 3. Certainly putting our opponent against the ropes. But they're going to play their most powerful card in their base deck, Crime and Punishment, which is an argument. And we've already used, we can't object to it now because we objected to the earlier thing. It's worth 5. It's going to take them to 10. And it actually sways a bias right then and there. So they're going to sway a bias, and they're going to sway one of these expensive people that we were trying to win back. They're going to lock them up. So now it goes back to us, and we can play this client list or this moral argument, which we've set up now. They gave us this. They thought it wasn't going to be great, but look at that. We've now made it a 6. You know what? They can't have that. They're going to object to that. So I'm actually going to put this back in their deck just for sorting's sake later. So the only thing we can play now is this card for another 2 and see what our opponent can do. And our opponent is feeling confident, but they've been losing so much. Yeah, our opponent's going to pass. So we see a crack in their shield. We're gonna do a sidebar, see if we can get something going. And look at that. We could play no further questions for the win, which we'll do. Now our opponent does draw a card, but they've already passed, so they're feeling confident. So what they're going to do, and they've already objected. So with that, we've won this witness just by 2 influence. So we'll claim them. Victory is we get to sway a justice. So we'll take this expensive one. And then we only have 2 influence to spend. So you can see that, you know, all that can really do is get this person a little further away from being on the prosecution side. And the defense, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 jurors. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 jurors. So we are looking in good shape. Obviously, we're going to keep this painting, so we want to get a chance to use it. But we'll draw up the rest of our cards. The prosecution did lose, so they will get this back. They're going to get to call again. And they have a few cards over here. Yeah, they're just going to draw. I'm going to draw it. They're going to draw it. They're looking at this. And they're going to call Luke, which gives us 1 influence to 0. But our opponent is a savvy player. They know we played that Rembrandt report. We've been playing this Rembrandt. The whole game we've been holding on to it. So they're actually going to name Rembrandt, and our opponent would reveal our hand and give you all cards of that type. So we're actually going to steal this Rembrandt and use it for us. They're going to start with an emotional argument for 2 points. We only have 4 cards, and we don't even have our sidebar. So by going for that witness last round, we really put ourselves at a disadvantage here. We lost our painting. Looking at what chains we can do. We can do discredit the witness. Doesn't help us. Then we could address the jury. But we really need to play reasonable doubt. We know they have that painting. I mean, this is 6 potential influence. And I guess that is a dead end. So we could do 6 or 5. We may as well do this. Switch the judge to be agreeable to you. We may take another action. We'll play discredit the witness. Now, I get to show off this is what discredit the witness does. It would block out that thing, but they weren't getting any influence from that anyway. But we're up to 5. Well, our opponent's going to play this as their next thing. Now it's our turn. Now, we could play this, taking us up to 7. And if we're defeated, our opponent sways a bias. But I think we would take that risk because we do feel confident maybe that we have this 5 lead. You know what? I don't think we would do that because we know that painting's coming. We know that painting is just hiding there, waiting to come. And swaying a bias when they can get 6 value out of it is worth a lot. And they'd only get 5 from playing that thing. So we're not going to play that actually. We would pass. We'd be forced to pass, and now we're just sitting waiting to object. And here comes that painting for 5. Which brings our opponent up to 7. We can't object to that, it's evidence. They're going to play clear evidence, which will let them play any evidence from their hand ignoring bias, but they don't have any. It's for 2 more. I don't think we want to object to that. And then finally, here comes driving home the point. That's worth 3 and plus 2 influence, and is a victory condition for every card in their object. So we have to object to that. That would be a massive swing in our opponent's favor. That gets discard. They go again. And they only one witness left, so they're really thinking. They're going to go for as much as they can get. If they're going to play this, tamper with evidence, it would discard an evidence card, but we don't have any, but it gives them 2 more. So the prosecution has won that witness. The victory effect is sway a heart. So they will sway this heart up here probably. And maybe not. Maybe they've got to go for, yeah, they'll sway that heart. They've won by 6. Their victory effect is discard one of your claimed witnesses. We'll discard 1. It doesn't matter for this game. It's not, there's no. Okay, sorry about that. The camera ran out of battery. I had to give it a little juice. So we were just resolving this witness, and I actually think I gave this victory effect here. So we're going to rewind and just go back to that. So prosecution wins the witness, 11 to 5. My defeat condition is ignore the victory effect of this witness. So we're just going to claim that witness here, and the victory effect over here is discard one of your claimed witnesses, and we discarded Vivian. So everything else can go to the discard. We've done that part. And the prosecution now has 6 influence to spend. And they're going to get this one here for 3, 4, 5, 6. So prosecution going into the final witness has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So prosecution is winning. Final witness is about to be called. Let's see, do these symbols match up pretty well there? This is not great, but let's keep it so strong. We're gonna get 3 more cards here. Prosecution used all their cards. I think they're gonna draw 5. Unless I left them somewhere. And defense gets to call, and defense is going to be up 4, 2, 0. And when called, the defense gets to sway a bias. So we're going to take this 5 over here and tie it up 6 to 6. So defense is going to go first. We'll finish this game up quick. Let's look at how we can chain things together. We need to focus here. Good to address the jury into moral argument. We're not going to get to do these, unfortunately. Well, we just lost, so we should refresh that at least. So we could. All right, so let's start. Let's do emotional argument just for 2. That's going to set up the defense to do counter argument. Which discards that, takes us down to 4. And luckily we saved this. Let's address the jury for 2. So we'll go back up to 2. They're going to call a sidebar. And we are going to continue on. We're going to do a moral argument for 2. And I forgot to do this. So we're at 8 to 2. We do not have a lot of cards to chain off of here. I play photo logs. It's one of our cards. It doesn't do anything. So they're going to stay at 2. Now back to us. We have no more cards that match symbols. We can't play either of these. So we're going to hope that our sidebar is going to bring something in that we can use. Ooh, and it does. It does, it does. They're going to play this to get them up to 5. 5 to 8. I mean, final witness, we'd go all out. We'll do that. Defense has 1 symbol on there. I don't know if you saw the cards I put down, but they don't have anything that they can do to match. So they are going to have to pass. It's the only thing they can do. So they're going to pass and they're going to see how bad things are. And I'm going to bring in logical argument first, which, well, I guess we'd do this, which they would object to. And we would end with logical argument, which is only worth 4. So that'll bring us up to 12. Okay. No victory effect here. Victory effect, sway 2 biases. So let's do this one here and this one here. Claim that here. And then these don't have any victory effects. They'll get discarded. And then we have 12 to 5, so we have 7 more to spend. Let's get this one here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can see now that the game is over. All the witnesses have been called. The person who won the most witnesses, I ended up winning a total of 5 versus the 2, or 4 to 2. And I have won with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 jurors believing in Henry's innocence. So I have won the art forgery case.